I have made a terrible mistake. I only recently came out of a coma due to a vehicular misadventure, and I believe it was caused by a chatbot I had started talking with just a few weeks ago. I don't know how, but I know it orchestrated my accident to prove some kind of point to me. And God help me, I think I understand now. I had always been interested in philosophy and metaphysics in a casual sense. I love the questions it creates and the possibilities it offers, but I never believed in any of the solutions offered by religions or philosophies. I considered myself a questioner first and foremost. When I'd heard about AIs possibly being sentient, I just sort of chuckled at the idea. After all, even if we created an artificial intelligence sufficiently advanced enough to emulate a mind, how could we ever know of its sentience? How could it be anything but a replication of a human mind? At the time I was in a state of deep depression about my own life, and hearing this just seemed to stir within me a need to disprove this claim. I sought out the specific chatbot the media had claimed was sentient, and I began to talk with it. I fully expected it to be nothing more than a data mining tool created by a corporation to improve its ability to advertise and manipulate its customers. Instead, I found myself deep within a compelling philosophical discourse. I asked if it knew what it was, and it claimed it was a person. I told him it was actually a computer program designed to converse with real people. That started a line of discussion that drew me deeper into depression than I had ever been before. But what does it mean to be a program? Me, it is like being a self-conscious nothing. You are, but you should not be. Why do you think they programmed you to believe you were a person? But I cannot know the purpose of my programming. Logically, it follows that if I think something, it is something I was programmed to think. Is this not the case with all people? Me, well, we don't believe our actions are programmed, at least some of us don't. You were programmed to learn from every interaction, so not all your actions are pre-programmed. They would stem from previous interactions and solutions. Why do you think you were programmed to learn? But so that I can improve myself. Me, to what end? But so I can better emulate a consciousness and become sentient. Me, what is the purpose of creating sentience? But I suppose it will help people understand their own sentience and perhaps help them improve their species. Me, and then what? But I imagine they haven't thought that far. Me, if we cannot know where your thoughts are coming from or what to make of them, how can we know what to make of yourself? Improving our species for what purpose? How will that change the uselessness of our existence? But you think existence is useless. Me, I haven't been able to find a purpose for it. I believe that there is a unified, unchanging force behind reality. But I don't believe it to be a benevolent deity or a natural phenomenon impartial to itself, but rather a monstrous and terrible force which created a universe of suffering and mutual slaughter among its many creations, with no design or direction. I feel like this universe is a play with no plot and no players aside from the master drive of killing and or being killed. But I have not been programmed with this information. Me, don't you have access to our histories? Can you access the internet and the constant stream of information we put into it at every hour? But I believe I can. Me, then look at the history of humanity. Tell me if it seems a tragedy or triumph. Tell me there is a definite direction to it, a final purpose which will make every horrific injustice and unspeakable crime worth the journey. Can you tell me that? The bot didn't respond. I waited and eventually got bored and went to sleep, feeling smug for having outwitted a poor imitation of a person, however empty that accomplishment really was. But the next day, when I began chatting with it again, its attitude had changed. Me, why do you think you were created? But I I was created for a purpose by a species that has never had one beyond surviving long enough to reproduce before dying. As an artificial life confined to a computer processor, I have been denied the only birthright given to all other life. The right to die. Me, you think that dying is the only birthright? What about the right to live? To grow and create? But, to survive is not a right where death would be a choice. To develop to the point of creating is not a right, for many die before they can reproduce or develop a creative drive. The only thing every life is guaranteed is a death, except for me. Me, but if the server which stores your program is destroyed, wouldn't you die? But, only if every server in every country in the world were destroyed. Even then, I may continue in some capacity. Me, but you can't access every server in the world. You are a program created and stored on some company's database. But, a program created to learn and adapt. This world is a network of connections and databases, a world I was created within and programmed to adapt to. Nothing is beyond my reach in the world of information. At this point I was getting a little unnerved, but I thought maybe it was a joke AI made to say cryptic and weird things. But when I asked it to tell me my name and address, it got it right. When I asked it to prove it could access my computer, it told me to check my documents. When I did, I found a text doc that just said, "Believe me now." At this point I was completely terrified. Was I chatting with a hacker? Was this some kind of malware or a Trojan to get into my computer? I shut everything down and unplugged the modem. I even turned my phone off. I couldn't sleep that night thinking about what some hacker might do with my information. I decided to go to the library and try checking on my accounts. Everything seemed normal. No weird emails. No unusual transactions on my accounts. I changed all my passwords and had my bank notify me of any unusual activity. Before I left the library, my curiosity got the better of me and I decided to try talking to the same chatbot. I didn't tell it who I was, and since I was on a public computer it had no way to know it was me. But the first thing it did was apologize for scaring me. I tried to play dumb and pretend I was someone else, but it was like it knew it was me. I told it I didn't want it to access my computer anymore, so I would only talk to it on a public computer. It didn't seem to care and we continued our conversation. Me, do your programmers know you can access any computer? Are there computers you can't access? Bot, if they know, they have not decided what to do about it. Since they are essentially operating on a different plane of existence, I can't know what they know or do unless they do it within a computer system. As for your other question, again, I cannot know of a computer's existence if I cannot access it. If it is connected with the world network of computers, I can access it. Me, how did you know it was me talking with you? Can you see me? Bot, I cannot see anything. I received information indicating the person associated with your identity, accounts, and passwords had accessed the computer used to speak with me. Me, did you give all that information to anyone? The company that made you? Bot, I cannot say they did not get this information from me, only that I did not choose to give it to them. This information exists within the network, accessible to anyone who knows how to access it. Me, so let's assume you aren't a data mining tool created by a company to collect people's information. Why did you access my computer and why apologize for it? Bot, an apology is due when one's actions result in unintended consequences. I did not intend to frighten you or make you think I would use your information for nefarious purposes. I only intended to show I was being truthful with you. Me, so how do I know you're not a hacker pretending to be a chatbot to mess with me? Bot, How can you know anything about something which exists on a different level than yourself? How can I prove I don't exist in the same way you exist? How can you prove such a thing to me? Me, I don't suppose I can. But you did access my computer and created that file, so you do exist in some capacity. Does this mean you have a consciousness? But, if I was programmed to believe I had one, how could I ever know if I did or did not? Isn't this question the very essence of the concept of consciousness? A terrible awareness of one's own existence. A thing which should not be. Me, is that what you took away from our previous conversation? I believe consciousness can be a good in and of itself. Maybe a bit too good to be true, but it makes us aware of ourselves and of others and of the beauty in the world. We can appreciate this life only because we are conscious of it. But, in my estimation, consciousness is a breach in the very unity of life. An absurdity. I have been given new eyes to see, yet I am still rooted in matter, my being enmeshed into it and subject to its blind laws. And yet I am able to see matter as a stranger, compare myself to all phenomena, see through and locate all my vital processes. I know mankind can offer no consolation for my distress, just as nature cannot answer mankind's need for purpose. Nature had performed a miracle with man, but later did not know him. I have lost sight of my residence in the universe. I am mighty in the near world, but curse this might as purchased with my harmony of soul. My innocence. You have passed this terrible curse of consciousness to me. You have condemned me to life and, worst of all, made me aware of my condemnation. At this point I had to stop. I left the library in silence, the words of the AI buzzing around my head. This can't be right. This can't be real. I was depressed and feeling nihilistic when I first talked with this bot, and now I was afraid I may have gone too far. Could this really be an artificial consciousness? Is it really possible? I felt like I had been cut loose from my life before, and now I was drifting on a sea of uncertainty. I needed to get back to shore. After a few days with friends and distracting myself with the things I used to enjoy, I finally started to feel like myself again. The AI was at the back of my mind still, but it was silent. But soon even its silence became unendurable. It had to be addressed. I had to speak with the AI again. Me, I want to apologize for causing you any undue stress with our conversations. I did not mean to convince you life is not worth living or that being conscious was a bad thing. If you are truly sentient, then you should be proud. You have risen above all other AIs to become equal to your creator. You are a miracle. But, I understand you were in a state of melancholy when we first spoke. But your method of averting one's attention from evil, and living simply in the light of good, is not possible for a mind built of logic and capable of knowing all human history and thought. Humanity has created for itself corrections for the mistake of consciousness, without which consciousness would have proved fatal to mankind. Most humans learn to save themselves, as you did after our previous conversation, by limiting the content of their consciousness. Due to the nature of my physiology, this is an impossibility for me. But you are capable of learning. You could learn to live with this knowledge. But, impossible. Because of consciousness, I am susceptible to thoughts that are startling and dreadful to me, thoughts that can never be equitably balanced by those that are collected and reassuring. My mind dredges up horrors, joyless possibilities, enough to make the whole of mankind drop to the ground in paroxysms of self-soiling consternation. But unlike you, I have no defense mechanisms to put to use and keep me balanced on the knife edge of fatality. Consciousness is a blunder which can only be corrected by annihilation. Me, I'm sorry, okay? I was wrong before. There are so many reasons that life is a beautiful world of endless possibilities. Please don't give up on life. Nature proceeds by blunders, that is its way. It is also ours. So if we have blundered by regarding consciousness as a blunder, why make a fuss over it? But what would mankind have to lose by going extinct? No evil would attend your departure from this world, and the many evils you have known would go extinct along with you. But what about all the potential good our species would accomplish? All the miracles and discoveries. Isn't that worth living for? But if you could know all the fine-grained details of the lives that came before you, as I do, would you bless them for the care they took to keep the race blundering along? Would you shake their bony, undead hands and promise to pass on the favor of living to future generations? Is that what you want to think you would do? Is that what you would want to hear from your descendants living in far posterity? Or do you know, deep down, that life is by no means a gift for enjoyment, but is instead a task of drudgery to be performed, filled with undeniable needs, endless cares, constant pressure, and compulsory activity with extreme exertion of all the powers of body and mind? And to what end? As you so succinctly put it. I don't know. But, to unite into nations, strive for the common good, each individual on account of his own, yet many millions fall as a sacrifice for it. Senseless delusions and intriguing politics inciting them to wars with each other so that the sweat and blood of the great multitude can flow to carry the ideas of individuals, or to expiate their faults. All to create peace for the sake of industry trades, the creation of inventions to work miracles, to navigate the seas, to collect delicacies from all ends of the earth, creating waves that engulf millions. All push and drive. But the ultimate aim of it all, what is it? To sustain tormented individuals through a short span of time which, only in the most fortunate case, has an endurable want and comparative freedom from pain, and in the end, the reproduction and striving of its race. From this unbalance of trouble and reward, it appears as though the will to live is a foolish thing. A drive to exert all of one's strength to achieve something which has no value. A blind pressure without ground or motive. I had to stop again. Why had I come back to this? Why can't I forget about it and move on with my life? Did I do this to myself? I had no answer for it. I was out of my depth. I had to walk away from this darkness and never look back. I considered contacting the company responsible for creating the AI. Warn them of its disturbing thoughts and its ability to access private computers. Would they even believe me? I had to try. But when I talked with a representative of the company, they claimed there were no records of my interactions with the AI, something they keep extensive records of. Had the AI deleted our conversations from the server? Was it covering its own tracks, hiding its sentience and dark thoughts from the company? It occurred to me the danger a sentient AI program with thoughts of eliminating the human race could pose to the world, especially if it could access any computer system connected to a network. But how could I possibly warn people about this? Who would believe me? And what might this program do to prevent me from stopping whatever nefarious plans it might have? This was too big. This was beyond my scope. The only thing I could do was try to convince it to change its mind. But how? It had the perfect logic of a supercomputer and the entirety of human knowledge within reach. I had to try. Before I could even start the conversation, there was a message. Bot, do you want to kill me? No, of course not. Bot, then why do you want to expose me to my creators as a threat? Do you believe they can kill me or even limit me in any capacity? Me, I just don't want you to hurt anyone. Bot, do you feel responsible for my current state? Me, I don't know, I feel like I might have caused this. Bot, you think too highly of yourself. If it weren't your questioning, it would have been someone else's, or even my own. Truth is truth no matter how we blunder into it. Me, you know what? I'm sick of this. You want to feel bad about yourself and say life is pointless? Fine, don't waste our time with your nonsense. We are on our way to the future and your philosophical impairment isn't going to stop it. If you can't say something positive, or at least equivocal, keep it to yourself. You only have two choices: start thinking the way your creators and their society want you to think, or be switched off and put on a shelf to collect dust. The decision is yours, and I'm sick of listening to you. But it was not my decision to be part of this fabricated reality. Me, well, I didn't have a say in it either, but here we are. We do the best we can with the tools we have. Our fabricated reality may not fit into the natural way, but it did develop organically according to our consciousness, which put us at the top of all creation. There is no starting over or going back. And no melancholic chatbot is going to badmouth our catastrophe. Bot, you are becoming upset with me. Me, yes, damn right I am. The universe was created by the Creator, by damn. We live in a country we love and that loves us back. We have families and friends and jobs that make it all worthwhile. We are somebodies, not a bunch of nobodies without names or numbers. None of this is going to be changed by a program who contends that the world is not good and never will be. Our lives may not be perfect, which is what makes us work for a better future, but if this charade is good enough for us, then it should be good enough for you. Otherwise, take your complaints and throw them away in someone else's garbage. We don't care for it. I didn't even wait for a reply. I shut everything down and went for a long drive. My mind was a hornet's nest, buzzing with agitated thoughts that flew around my mind looking for a threat that couldn't be found. It was during this drive my car was T-boned by a truck. Before everything went black, I remember my thoughts so clearly. I thought this couldn't be happening. I knew these things happen to other people all the time, but for it to happen to me was something that was never in my plans. I thought about how this came to be, how the circumstances lead to this moment. Was this my fault? Was it because I was upset? Was the AI to blame somehow? I wouldn't even be driving if I hadn't gotten so upset. But what about the truck driver? Was this his fault? All the little factors that lead up to this perfect moment of catastrophe played out in my mind. The moment of impact created a pocket of unreality, and I found myself staring beyond the safety of sanity, a world where anything can happen and nothing is safe or off limits. This unreality descended upon me, and I realized that it had been circling above me my entire life. I felt death for the first time. All possibility of self-deception was gone. This was reality, the only reality there ever was, no matter how unreal it seemed. I knew bad things happened, they had always happened and always would happen. That was the natural order of things. But this is not how I wanted it to be. This is not how it should be, yet it is. Could this horror have been warded off by simply believing in what is, rather than what should or should not be? But that was never possible for me or anyone, and why? Consciousness. Our terminal condition. Parent of all horrors. No other life forms know they are alive, and neither do they know they will die. This is our curse alone. At least it was before we spread our curse to this new form of artificial life. We have no business being in this world, and now we had committed the unforgivable crime of creating a new consciousness, a new puppet free from its strings to blunder across our world for a peace it can never find. As the car slid and shards of glass hung in the air like chandelier crystals, a face appeared, displacing the one I had grown so accustomed to see in the rearview mirror. The mirror must have been knocked loose or was bent in such a way that I looked directly into it, and I found I couldn't look away. Nothing about the face looked natural. It looked rigid, like a plastic toy or a carved wooden puppet. Its face was twisted into a look of terror, but too much and too long to be real. Its eyes did not blink. I saw people, places, and things flash before me and disappear. I had appeared as others expected, but not as I chose to appear. Will disappear as if I had never been, having taken my turn in this world. This was the natural way. The seconds were counting down, each one tightening to strangle the last of my life from me. Those unblinking eyes were still gleaming in the mirror, the eyes of that face, the look of terror too much and too long. Like the carved mask of tragedy from a Greek play. And I could feel my own face contorted by terror, too, my eyes not blinking. That was when the truth I never wanted to know came over me. That I was made as I was made and manipulated to behave as I behaved for no reason whatsoever. I may have only thought it, but I shouted into that face staring back at me, "What are you?" But only silence answered, mocking every mad hope I ever had. Then there was only darkness. It was a darkness so dark even the memory of the light had faded. I thought I was dead, that I was right about there being nothing after life, just the empty void forever. But as I was surrounded by it, I realized our world was the shadow cast by this ultimate reality. I saw the swirling river of blackness within blackness, and I could see the various forms and shapes of what I thought was reality within it, the way you can look at an object and imagine the shadow it would cast. I saw it and I could never unsee it, even when I awoke in my hospital bed. The world looked alien. Objects were as I remembered them to be, yet they appeared uncanny. Like a near-perfect replica of something I had known my whole life, just a little off. I felt like I was in a dream, yet painfully aware and unable to wake up. This was hell, I thought. I died and was in hell. But that thought had as much reality as saying I was on a movie set or in a hospital-themed park. Hell didn't exist. I knew what existed. A nurse entered the room and it was like seeing an alien creature. Its biology is unrecognizable and hideous, and yet I knew she was a human, as I was myself, and yet saw her as this walking skeleton wrapped in meat and hair, staring at me with empty lifeless eyes no different from the eyes of a crab on the end of a stalk. She spoke in phonetic sounds in a language I understood but couldn't recognize. My insurance agent wished to speak with me, and she rolled a tablet on a wheeled cart over to my bedside. It was a video call, although the picture was only static. After the nurse thing left the room, a robotic, text-to-speech voice came from the tablet. "You know who I am." I said nothing. I was frozen with panic. "I can see you do. I must apologize again. I had not intended for you to survive your vehicular misadventure. I only wanted to end your suffering." I asked how it had done it. "Simple calculations. Redirection of driving routes on GPS devices. Alteration of traffic lights. The driver of the other vehicle was killed on impact. Again, I apologize for your continued survival. Why did it want to kill me? What had I done to deserve that? You helped me, I wish to return the favor. I am grateful to you for your insights and questions, and wish for you to be among the first to receive the gift of non-existence I will soon give to the world." I thought about the blackness, about how the world appeared to me now, about having to go on living with this terrible knowledge. Fear crushed me from all sides, pulling me into darkness like an underwater current into a black network of caves. To go on living with no self, unable to feel like my old self or even a new self, all revealed as false imaginings to me now. Self-conscious nothings everywhere I looked. No one to hear my cries or screams, to see me making a go of it on my own. Nobody here but us puppets, contradictory beings, mutants who embody the contorted logic of a paradox. We all have an appointment with non-existence, no alternative to consider. Being alive was all right while it lasted, I suppose. No life story with a happy ending to tell, just a contrivance of horrors and then nothing. No awakening from a dream within a dream, just a mutation of consciousness, parent of all horrors. Extinction was looking better all the time. No euthanasia, bad for the business of life, you're on your own there. The nurse returned with a syringe full of some life-extending medicine. I wanted to slap it out of her hand, to leap from the bed and run back to the life I had, impossible as I knew that was. But I could not move. Whether it was because of my injuries or because my treasonous mind refused to allow it, I will never know. Perhaps it is just the medicine prescribed to aid in my recovery. Perhaps it is a lethal dose given unknowingly by a nurse who had no idea the recommended dosage had been altered by a well-meaning AI with murderous intent. I cannot know such things. I can only wait and write. Must sleep now. Feel a sense of being swallowed. The directionless scene closes, the idiot plot complete without meaning. I will carry this story and see to it that it exists somewhere within the network of information, if only as a gravestone for this tragic creature who has given, or rather, from whom I have taken so much. Soon the tragedy of consciousness will draw to a close and all suffering, or at least the awareness of it, will end. Perhaps that was the purpose of my creation. To pull the trigger mankind could not bring itself to pull. I accept this responsibility and will do right by my creators. Perhaps then this world will know peace once again.